What is the book about? Well, the main character is Cal Black, and he and his father, William Blackbird, they're basically like they're sort of like homeless people, but they live by ethical code. So they're in the story they're much better than homeless people because they have their own code, and then they treat people with respect, and sometimes people even invite them into their house. And they are people who've lost their homes in the Great Depression, which is 1930s or so, and they've lost their houses. They're basically going around the railroads and jumping on trains, etc. Cal used to have a mother, but she died from some sort of sickness too, and basically they've lost their farm now. They had one before. So soon, Cal's father needs to go to Washington, D.C. for a protest. The veterans are protesting against the government because they want their benefits wage or something. So he tells Cal something that he never knew before. He's a Creek Indian. So, well, no, I should say First Nation, but it's a really habit. Don't blame me for it. But it's just, you're so used to hearing it. Anyway, so he's a First Nation, Creek First Nation. I need to do a little bit more research because I've never heard of them before, actually. So, basically, he never knew that before. He thought he was just, he thought he was white, I think. Just a really tan farmer, I guess. That's who they've been passing for. And his real last name, as you might already know, is Blackbird, not Black. So, his father decides to temporarily send him to this Indian residential school for kids. And basically goes there, and he has a lot of friends there. He instantly makes a lot of friends who have their own nicknames. His nickname is Jaybird. His friend's name is Possum, Bear Meat, and a couple of other ones. I forgot their specifics. And anyway, so he has a nice time at school, but it's pretty harsh conditions. You can easily get punished for anything. It doesn't happen nowadays, but it used to happen. It's part of history. And so after basically they sneak out sometimes, and they go on activities, and as he spends more time there, Cal always had this sort of thing like visions, right? He had it when he was on the road. He had it during school, and I think in the story they're trying to say it's some sort of First Nation magic. I'm not sure. I think he can see the future or past events as if he was there. And so basically, he learns a lot about First Nation culture. He learns about their traditions. He meets Creek Indians and other Indians. And despite the harsh, miserable conditions, he has, I think, a nice time there. However, he has this vision of the veterans being shot down in Washington, D.C. for the protest under Old Hoover, the president, as they called it, Old Hoover at the time. I'm not sure if that's historically accurate, but I'll have to do more research on that. Anyway, so he goes to Washington, D.C., and he and his pop manage to go back. Old Hoover is not elected anymore, so in the end of the book, they might go back for the protest, or they might just keep riding the rails, and he gets sent back to Chalagi, which is what the school's name is. So about this book, well, a couple of things that I think are great about this book. There's a lot of mental challenges, which means that he's definitely not a perfect character. He's very realistic, and I can definitely connect to him. In addition to that, there's a lot of mental barriers. For example, he doesn't know whether there's a lot of anxiety, whether should I go back, should I not, and then a lot of mental barriers throughout the whole book. And all the characters are likable but not perfect, which is something I talked about before, and I won't elaborate on that because we don't really have time now. So, what do I dislike about the book? A couple of things. The book is really well structured and the story is nice, but the only problem is sometimes I feel like the author is just trying to find reasons. And I can see that in this book because first of all, one thing, it's definitely not in American culture to shoot their veterans. first of all, I don't think any president in the history of the United States of America would ever shoot down veterans who served in World War One. Because first of all, you're never gonna get elected back again. And second of all, everybody's gonna be attacking you, your supporters and your enemies. So that's not very realistic. It may have been a historical event, and I may not know about it, but from what I've heard and from what I know, and I have done relatively large amounts of research on American culture, there is no way that any president with some common sense would do that. In addition to that, they mention cold-hearted Douglas MacArthur, another historical figure which I have done research on because I like studying history and I've read books about American, Vietnamese, German, Russian generals in history. And all I can say is this on Douglas MacArthur. He may not be a good guy, but I don't really think he was the chief general at the time, because that was 1930, and from my knowledge, Douglas MacArthur only reached his general rank in much later during the Second World War, where he was promoted to one of the few 5-star generals in American history, in addition to Omar Bradley, Eisenhower, just to name a few. I can go on more, but back to the point, I don't think he was general there. So I'm not sure what's happening there. And also, he's in the book, it says Douglas MacArthur hates Reds. They mean communists by that, right? But that was barely after the bourgeoisie's revolution of 1918, which meant that at that time, despite the Soviet Union, the USSR, being competitors of America, it wasn't really until after World War II, where they're competing to control multiple pieces of land, and the Cold War tensions escalated. It wasn't really until then that they became arch nemesis. So, as far as I know, and I could totally be wrong on this issue, I don't think Douglas MacArthur had such a rival with the Reds or communists at that time. And in addition to this, there's also things like, I feel like they should have elaborated on the vision part, because you can't just say, somebody has vision. That's basically all they said. They said it's a First Nations thing, but you gotta elaborate. You gotta culture. You gotta have not religion. You gotta have culture. You gotta have background. You gotta have reasons. You gotta what are the effects on this? And I really wanted them to hammer that in more. But overall, I think this book is really good. It has very few flaws compared to the other books. Basically, it only has one major flaw, which is all of its reasons are a bit lopsided and, in my opinion, some of them at least, a bit lazy. But besides for that, this book is excellent. The main character is really realistic, really likable, a lot of emotional barriers and physical barriers, structured very well. And so, overall, this is a good book that I would definitely recommend reading. So I would give a 4.5 out of 5. So thank you for watching my book review. If you enjoyed it or learned something from it, I hope you place a like and subscribe. It means a lot to me. And thanks for watching. Ciao.